Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, February 22nd in the year 2022, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom, brought to you by the Best Girl consulting firm. I met David Paladino in the early 2000s. David is an actor and a friend. Like many working actors in LA, David has a side gig. He was and is a graphic artist and a damn good one, and I can personally attest to that. He has designed DVD covers, logos, and other business materials needed in our business at Best Girl. As an actor, David has appeared on both television and in film, including CSI Vegas, Narcos Mexico, and over 50 other productions. David is our G-list guest today, all the way from Los Angeles, and we will certainly get into his credits and career, but David's unique life story is beyond acting credits, and we will get into that also in our visit today. David's life story was featured on Ira Glass's radio show, This American Life, on NPR. It is a fascinating story, and David is here to share his life story with us today as our G-List guest. The G-List is sponsored by Mainstream Financial Services. Mainstream Financial brings financial vision and clarity to your retirement plan. So you want to talk to the people at Mainstream Financial because you do not want to let your money run out before you do. This edition of Tuesdays with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl consulting firm. Best Girl has been providing customized solutions to executive issues for over 34 years. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly Gossam, Emily Hedrick, Sean Jones, and Valton Johnson, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communications, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl creates the solution that fits your needs. So let's go right away to the round table and talk to Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards, how are you this morning?
Morning, Thom. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing very, very well. Thank you. So, excuse me. We're winding down Black History Month. So tell me what's happening with you, Barbara, in your world.
Well, Thom, first I want to offer condolences to my family. We lost another family member yesterday, totally unexpected. A cousin who passed away in his sleep, in his 40s. So way too young. Had not been sick at all. So again, totally a surprise to the family. So please offer prayers to the Miller family. His mother passed away several months ago, and he was the only child. So I asked for special prayers for his dad. And it's very difficult for them right now.
We'll certainly honor that and do that. And wish you all a lot of condolences.
Thank you.
Went through that last year quite a bit. So
yes.
Yeah. Anyway, let me get Michael on, and we'll come back and holler back at you.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Walker is in Atlanta, Georgia. And Michael, how are you this morning?
I am doing well, Thom. Hope you're doing well this morning. Barbara, again, my condolences on your loss.
Thank you.
Prayers and thoughts are with you all.
Thank you so much.
That's a tough one. What's going on in Atlanta, Michael?
Well, in Atlanta, let's see. There's different types of weather. The weather is bipolar here in Atlanta right now. We're experiencing some kind of warm weather and what have you. And then I'm told that it's going to rain closer to next weekend, and we're going to dip back into winter weather. So it's a little bipolarism going on in Atlanta.
Are we supposed to go back down into the 30s and 20s? I thought we had gotten past it.
Not in Atlanta. So, no. Like I said, it's bipolar up here.
It's pretty bipolar in Alabama too right now, Michael.
Okay, so you got me going this morning. Let me ask you guys. So, we started off Black History Month with Judge U.W. Clement, and I mean, he was awesome.
Yes, he was.
And we had Butch on to talk about the websites or what have you. And we're it's our last week of Black History Month. So, has anybody got anything that they want to talk about in regards to Black History Month? Barbara, Michael?
Well, sure. When I think about Black history, I often reflect on those that came before us and all the contributions that they made to society that we enjoy today. And the person that I'd like to mention is someone that I have always admired and was inspired by, and that is the one Garrett Augusta Morgan. He was born March 4th, 1877, and he passed away July 27th, 1963. But the reason why he's such an inspiration to me is he invented the gas mask as well as the traffic light. Garrett was the first Black man in Cleveland, Ohio, to own a vehicle. And as a result of that, he created the friction drive clutch. And later, he invented the 3-signal traffic light, which we use today.
Wow.
We don't hear about that very often. And he held several patents. And, just think about the gas mask that's being used and how important that is today. And before he invented the gas mask, he had something called the smoke hood, which was a predecessor to the gas mask.
Wow.
That's great. That's an
interesting
piece. Yeah, good deal. Barbara?
Thom, I want to thank you for allowing Tuesdays with Thom to focus on Black history. We've had some amazing guests this month. And of course, we started out the month with Judge Clemens, and he was phenomenal. Just to hear some of the things that he went through as a young boy here in Alabama and dealing with racial issues and how he overcame all of that. And then having Eric Simmons on to talk about the Seattle Project and the museum there in Decatur and how that's going to start the Civil Rights Trail here in Alabama, up in North Alabama. Truly exciting. So thank you so much for focusing on all of those things.
Well, thank you. I just think it's important, and it's important to know. And just like Michael just talked about this gentleman that I had not heard of, but I'll look him up when we get off, because it's. I mean, if he invented the traffic light and the gas mask and all that, I think it's certainly somebody we ought to know about. And I don't know where we are today with this. Everything's a controversy today with this. People don't want you to teach Black history because that takes away from the other history and blah, 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 blah. I don't know about all that.
It's all history. That's
right.
The strange thing. They don't want to know history because that's all it is. I have taken a stance this month and focused on just things that have been invented, started by famous Black individuals on my social media pages this month. And I'm amazed at how many people did not know so many critical parts of history that's just been left out of the history books. And so it's sad that they can't see that that's all one piece of our history. There's no Black history or white history.
Yeah, and I think our politics today is so divisive that anything that comes up becomes a controversy.
Yes.
And that's unfortunate, but
it's very unfortunate.
We'll get there. We'll figure it out.
I'm afraid that we will
at some point. That was great. Michael, you got some other stuff for us?
Well, yes. Something else I want to talk about that's current affairs, and it's Brian Flores. Flores, who is or was the former coach of the Miami Dolphins, head coach. He now has a job. He has a new job with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think it's somewhat ironic or what have you, or apropos that the Steelers picked him up and made him a linebacker coach. As you know, the Rooney Rule was implemented in the NFL to give African-American opportunities to become head coaches and higher level management within the NFL. However, it has been manipulated, might I say, where it was mainly just window dressing. And they used it just to interview, but they were never really serious. And some people know, some people do not know, that he filed a discrimination lawsuit against the NFL, as well as the Denver Broncos, New York Giants, and the Houston Texans. 3 teams that he interviewed with. And I think what's interesting about this situation, there are 2 things. One, to me, is very disappointing, and I'll speak to that later. But I think the thing that was the catalyst for his discrimination lawsuit was the fact that he received a text from Bill Belichick saying, "Brian, congratulations on the job. You're going to get the job as head coach at New York Giants." Well, Belichick was really talking about the other Bryant, who happens to be a white male that got the job. Wow. And Brian Flores I think he had interviewed or something.
He had not interviewed. He had not interviewed.
He had not interviewed. Okay. Right. But he received this text from Belichick congratulating him on the job. And that made Brian Flores realize it was nothing but a sham interview.
Right. So he was scheduled to interview. Okay, yeah. I see. Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry about that.
And then he was congratulated by Bill Belichick of getting the head coaching job at the Giants.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
interesting, because when he responded back, Belichick said, "Oh, wrong Bryant. Sorry."
Yes. Exactly.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
Not at all.
Well, no, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny. You know, that Belichick was the one that sent him that message.
So the word had gotten out that the Giants had already made a decision about who they were going to hire. Belichick knew. And yet Brian Flores had been scheduled for an interview. And so it was just, like you said, window dressing. You know, because of that ruling, they felt like they needed to interview someone Black, but they'd already chosen who they wanted and told people who they wanted. You know, that's the sad part. Wow. They actually let the word get out.
Right. And the interesting thing about this also is the fact that the NFL came out like all big corporations do when they're hit with a lawsuit, is it's without merit. That's the first thing. That's lawyer speak. It's without merit.
Right.
Well, if it's without merit, why are you reviewing your policies then?
Right.
Okay. Because they come back and say, we're reviewing our policies and we're looking at this. Now, to get to the other point that I was making that I find very disappointing and disconcerting is the fact that former Attorney General Loretta Lynch has been hired by the NFL to defend them against the racial discrimination lawsuit that Brian Flores had brought to bear.
Right.
Why didn't she just decline? I don't understand that.
I don't either, Michael.
Good question. She's an attorney, and they say you're supposed to take the case, I guess, huh?
Well, not every. Now, I've been in plenty instances where I needed to sue corporations, and there were attorneys told me they couldn't take the case, or they would decline to take the case.
Yeah.
So why couldn't she decline this case?
Good question. You kind of got to go back to the beginning of Black History Month and Judge Clemens.
Yes.
When he really took off after that judge, the woman, I can't remember, but he called her Clarence Thomas in a dress.
Yeah. There may be a few of those around.
That is amazing. I don't know. You know, and Pittsburgh has hired him.
Yes.
As an
hired
assistant.
him as
linebackers coach, I believe.
Yeah, a special assistant or something to that effect. You wonder how much longer Tomlin will coach, and if in fact that's a setup to bring him there. But I don't know. It's just it's amazing, and it continues to happen. And you know, I still think about the coordinator down at Tampa. You know, and Michael, who's the offensive coordinator at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the guy over at Kansas City, and every year their names come up and for head coaching jobs, and every year they're passed over.
Right.
It's just interesting.
And unfortunately, that's not just the NFL. I mean, it happens pretty frequently, but you know, that's a great example of it. And you some people just fail to realize, or they fail to admit that type of thing still exists. People will tell you that racism doesn't exist any longer.
Well, you talk about the offensive coordinator from Tampa. Now, in everybody's eyes, especially the media, Tom Brady is God. Okay. But the offensive coordinator for Tampa happens to be a former NFL quarterback. He's calling the plays and stuff. So Brady goes down there, they win the Super Bowl, they get back to the playoffs, I think the NFC Championship game, but he can't get a job. Now, he was supposed to be in line for the job at Jacksonville, and then all of a sudden something just happened. He was in line, he was on the short list.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden something just happened. They went in a different direction. So now if you call the offensive plays for Tom Brady and you can't get a head coaching job.
Yeah.
Well, there is the head coach and the quarterback are the faces of the franchise. And there still is difficulty with having that head coach and that face of the franchise, particularly the quarterback, be a young black man, and then the coach as well. It's unfortunate. Very much unfortunate. Let me ask you guys, did you guys see the scrap between Juwan Howard and this other guy? Now here's what I'll say. Why you got your hands on me, man?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You don't have any right.
Right.
He just gonna hold Juwan Howard back.
Right.
And stand there. And then when Juwan tried to get by him, he
still.
like,
yes.
No, you don't do that.
Yeah, I agree,
know.
Tom. That bothered me because, Juwan Howard was suspended for the remainder of the season, 5-game suspension, which is the remainder of the regular season, and fined, I think, $40,000. Whereas the other coach who initiated everything, in my opinion, wasn't.
And I think up until this point has not apologized.
No, has not.
Just
has not. He was only fined $10,000 for his part in starting this whole thing. So it is very interesting, and there's a lot of discussion on social media about it. And of course, it's kind of split as to how people are viewing it. And it is very interesting that people see things from a totally different perspective when they haven't had to deal with it. And it is sad. It's sad.
I agree with it, but I just have to say, and I'm not taking sides one way or the other, but from my experience and the things that I have experienced, if you're in a position like Juwan Howard, number one, you're held to a different standard, even though you are a coach.
Let me interrupt just a second, Michael, and ask you a question. So the other guy, is he a head coach or he assistant?
Yes.
Well,
the one who initiated was the head coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But the person that I think he struck was an assistant coach.
Okay.
That got into it with him.
But the head coach is the guy who basically wouldn't let him by.
Right.
Yeah, because he's going to force him.
Trying to just keep going.
He's going to force him to listen to his explanation why he called timeout with 20 seconds left in the game, that they were already winning by double digits. Okay. Which is kind of like a unofficial slap in the face.
Oh, very much so. But go ahead, Michael, finish your statement.
Well, what I was going to say is that we have to be smarter than that and have to outthink them. And when I say them, I'm talking about society and people that are involved in the industry that you're in. Juwan Howard needs to realize that he's held to a different standard.
But why, Michael? Tell me why. Why should he be held to a different standard? That's the point. He shouldn't be held to a different standard.
Well, that I
and we know that's reality.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Barbara. I'm not saying he shouldn't. He should be held to a different standard. I agree with you, but we're dealing in reality here. So what's real is he's held to a different standard. Why? Because he is an African-American man. He played basketball at the University of Michigan, went to the NBA, and now he's the head coach. So you have to represent the University of Michigan and everybody at a different standard than if you were not of that ethnic background. That's what I'm saying. And we have to learn that we have to deal with it from that standpoint. Okay. And I'll just give you a quick case in point. Okay. I was this several years ago when I was hanging out in Atlanta. I was at a frequent place where a lot of, celebrities go and what have you. Your boy Charles Barkley used to hang out there and all of that. I was there, and there was this gay white guy that was following me around the restaurant and the club. And he just continued to try to solicit me. I'll just put it that way. Now, I could have squashed him and said, just get out of my face. I'm going to do this or do that. But I didn't, because I knew if I did, it would go down totally different. So what did I do? I went to the security and I said, I got a problem with this guy. He's harassing me and following me. Will you take care of this for me? Well, the security people knew me. They went right over to him and said, hey, we just called a cab for you. You got to go. You're out. So that's just a quick example of I'm saying you have to think in a different light when you're in a certain position.
Okay. Interesting. I saw Juwan's statement that he made this morning. He made a great statement. He apologized to the world pretty much.
Right.
I don't think the other coach has made a statement.
If he has, it has been made public. So
has offered any type of an apology. And I'll just say this, and I agree with you, Michael, 100%, maybe 110%. But if I just got my behind kicked on the basketball court, and this guy calls a timeout with 20 seconds left, and I'm trying to, I guess they do that pass by where everybody shakes hands or what have you, and he grabs me, it'd take a lot. It would take a lot.
Emotions take over at that point, I think. And, Juwan Howard, I'm sure, had no intentions of hurting this guy. They had no malintent at all. He was just trying to pass by him.
Well, if he knocked the guy's hands off of him and turned around and walked off, it would be a lot better situation.
Right.
But
right.
I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting, and we'll see how far it goes.
I see a comment, Thom, that I have to respond to. Mike Simon.
I think it's the same one I was getting ready to read, but go ahead.
Okay. Mike Simon said, are you teaching your children and grandchildren that they are held to a different standard? And Mike, yes, I am. I have been doing that ever since my son was 4 years old and he could understand the words coming out of my mouth. I have told him that he is held to a different standard. He has to carry himself differently. And I've preached that to both my son and daughter.
I think many Black parents teach their kids, particularly when it's time for them to go out into the world. And I'm going to even say particularly if they're Black males.
Right.
And when they reach their teenage years, I think a responsible father sits down and tells them about the double standards in society. Right. Now, that doesn't mean that they should behave in a certain way or whatever, but it does mean that you're going to be held to a different standard out there. And I can tell you about the double standard that I've been held to. I can tell you about the double standards that Michael's been held to because I was involved in some of them when we were trying to, when I was working in employment with AT&T Bell South. And so I don't know, Mr. Simon. I appreciate your comment and continue to watch us and listen, and hopefully it'll be so that is how you overcome a minority mindset. I don't know about, I don't speak for everybody, so just I'll move on.
Well, I'm going to respond to that.
Go ahead, Michael.
Mr. Simon, I do not have a minority mindset.
Thank you.
My mindset is I'm just as good, if not better, than anyone else. And that's what I've been taught, and that's how I conduct myself. I was also taught that I have to be twice as good as an average person of a different ethnic background in order to be noticed. That is also true. But as far as a minority standard, I have no minority standard.
Yeah, I don't even know what that minority mindset is. Okay, Barbara, what about you? You got us, you got anything else for us?
No, Thom, I'm really interested in hearing David's story and talking with him this morning. So I'm ready to go at it.
Well, Vernell, I'll end this segment on this, if that's okay with you guys. Vernell Razor says, say that again, Michael.
I do not have a minority mindset.
Okay, y'all got me going this morning. So let's move on. Unless you guys got a final comment. Okay. All right, well, let's move on. Let's see, you got a minute? So Sean's got a minute to talk to us. Sean, where are you there?
Good morning. My name is Sean Jones, and this week's Got a Minute is wrapping up with Black History Month, with Women's History Month right around the corner. Now let's get into it. Everybody knows who Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff is, right? Right. They are both known for their roles in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which first aired in 1990. Well, did you know that on February 22nd, 1989, they won the first ever Grammy awarded to rap music for their song, Parents Just Don't Understand. They don't understand, right? Right. Got a Minute's quote of the day is from Martin Luther King Jr. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you for joining in. My name is Sean Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
Well, thank you, Miss Sean. Michael, you used to always give Sean a little bit of, not a hard time, but a congratulatory time. So what do you think about Got a Minute?
Oh, big money bringing it. That's why I call it big money.
We enjoyed that, Sean.
That was great, Sean. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, let's move on to the G list. The G list is where everybody is a star. And hear from Mainstream Financial Corporation, who sponsors the G list.
Mainstream Financial Group provides financial services for both individuals and businesses. Mainstream's mission is to understand the unique needs of every client and work closely with you, assembling a team to develop and manage your resources to help you accomplish your defined financial goals. Mainstream's financial professionals will provide you with a complimentary, no obligation financial review. Now, these professionals can then offer you custom advice to mend together the pieces of your financial life and come up with a plan that is truly comprehensive. Mainstream Financial assists retirees and those close to retirement in planning for a secure retirement so not to run out of money during your lifetime. You can take advantage of opportunities with tailored advice and the resources to act on it. Mainstream Financial Group, www.mainstreamfg.com, 205-324-0589.
Mainstream Financial Group. You don't want your money to run out before you do. So let's get to our G-list guest for today. Remember, Hollywood has the A-list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G-list, where everybody is a star. Today's G-list guest is David Paladino, actor, writer, and producer, and good friend. David's unique life story was featured on Ira Glass's radio show, This American Life. And Joyce and I, my wife and I, were riding up to Birmingham, and we were listening to NPR, and we both went, hey, wait a minute. Listen, isn't that our David on the radio is there? And so, David, I just have to, how are you, first of all? Thank you for being with us this morning. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Tom. I'm doing well. Thank you.
So, what was it like be on a radio show where 2.5 million people heard you? What was that like?
I mean, it's cool. It's hard to put into perspective how many people, because it's out there, or you can stream, you can listen to it online and stuff like that. But what's really cool about it is getting, now through social media, but maybe through my website or something, people writing me letters, just saying, hey, I have a similar story, or it inspired me, or I loved your mom's part of the story, or I loved your dad's part of the story, or I loved your biological father's part of the story. So it's always great to hear from people, and 99% of them are all positive.
That's great. You want to just give us a quick synopsis of the story before I bring Michael and Bar in? Can you do that?
A quick synopsis. I don't know. It's hard. People ask me that. I'm like, all right, let me just see if I can. So if somehow I get off track, just rein me back in, Tom.
Okay, no problem.
Basically, I grew up most of my life thinking I was Italian American. I was Italian. So my parents, Dave and Carol, they were high school sweethearts. Then they went to college together, and my mom found out a few months into college that she was pregnant. And they went and told their two Italian families. They're both Italian. They go, you guys are going to get married. They go, well, great. We planned on it anyway, but so we went and got married. My mom had me, and as I was growing up, I was darker than a lot of our family. Now, Italians have olive skin. A lot of times they're from southern part of Italy, and that's where some of our family was from. And so we had all these kind of explainable things. There was some darkness in our family. My dad's side of the family had curly hair, and so I came out. But as my sisters came after me, they weren't as dark as me. But again, we had all these explainable things, and it was just the Palladinos growing up, and I experienced different things growing up that my sisters did, is because I had darker skin. Cut to, different life things happened here and there, whatnot. We can get into some of those specifics, but cut to this question kind of burning inside me. Finally came to a head, and I was 29 and a half years old. And I was like, I got to go ask my mom. And there's a lot more to this story time, of course, but I basically went and asked my mom. She broke down and started crying and said, Dave Sr. is not your biological father. It's somebody else. And though it wasn't a shock, it was kind of a relief. I kind of knew it by then, and that's why I was ready to hear it. Basically, I then went on a quest to find my biological father, which I ended up doing, which we can get into, which is a very mysterious and miraculous story. And ended up meeting him, finding a relationship with him, met his mom, my grandma Beth. He had another son, met him. And so my, family really extended. So I am Italian American. I say I'm Italian, Black, like French Creole, West African, two different kinds of American Indian, Scotch Irish. I am the quintessential mutt. And I love it. I love being everything under the sun. It's really what it comes down to being.
I think you're the quintessential American.
That's all. And I use the word mutt with like really a fondness, so to speak, because to me, as time goes on, we're all, people are integrating. My son is another version of a beauty that is the combination of me and my wife and all of her lineage and all of my lineage and all this stuff that really doesn't amount to a hill of beans as far as like, hey, I need to put you in this place. It's like, nah, you're an American, you're a human being. How do you want to be identified? I did an interview years ago after the initial radio thing aired, and they say, how do you want to be viewed? And I said, just as Dave, like just as a person.
Yeah.
Well, what about this or that? I go, if I'm nice to somebody, I want them to be nice to me. If they're not nice to me, then I'm not going to be nice to them. If they're going to treat me nicely, they're going to treat me like an ass, then I'm going to walk the other way, or I'm going to handle my business however I see fit. But I can only be, I can't change how I look. I mean, I guess I could in today's day and age, but I'm not going to. So it is what it is. And so if I treat you with respect and you don't want to take that, then I want to be just identified as hopefully a good man. And not everybody's going to like me. I have to realize that.
When I remember we were sitting in this little restaurant and you started telling me that story.
Yeah.
And now maybe I could have read it wrong, but it seemed like it was more difficult for you to talk about at that time. I mean, you hadn't reached this level of comfort in talking about it. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, I think maybe some of it is, Thom, is not be able to articulate the feelings or the situation. So as I say, speak for myself, as I've evolved and understood more about life and understood more about, the elements of the story, my parents and the choices that they made, and then even what I went through, that I can articulate it better. I also think that I'm probably just more confident as a man in where I am in my life, and also like, maybe even then is like not knowing how it's going to be received. And to me, I don't actually now care how it's going to be received, because again, some people are going to like the story and some people won't. Some people are going to call me X, Y, and Z, and some people, like it kind of is what it is, and you either gravitate to or like it, or ask inquisitive questions, which I love. It's like, well, how did this feel, and how does this feel? I mean, I wrote a short one-act play about it, and we did it around the country, but one place we did it was the National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem.
Yeah,
and that was huge. I mean, having people come up to me afterwards and say, hey, you really hit a chord with me in a positive way, and Black men or Black women, thank for speaking honestly about something, some with tears in their eyes, and some with maybe a little cautious aspect of approaching me, like, how am I going to receive them, and how are they going to receive me? And it was really, really cool, because it just opened up conversation. Because I kind of was able to go between two worlds of being somewhat in a, I don't know, white world. I don't know how to equate it, in a Black world, or a person of color, or, even though I didn't look like my family, I kind of got to be, or I was Hispanic too, because people start speaking Spanish to me. They'd be like, hey, ¿cómo estás? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I spoke a little Spanish, but I'd be like, or even Middle Eastern or something. Like I would kind of like, volley between universes, if you will.
And I'm going to get Michael and Barbara here, but I want to ask you one question about the business, the business of acting, because the casting people will ask for, at this point, they don't ask for certain ethnicities anymore. But if it's meant for people who are other than Caucasian, they say any ethnicity. And we've both been a part of that business and how that works. How does that, and I know when they say any ethnicity to me, and then I go in, it's like, okay, that's Black.
Right.
How does that affect you, or how has that affected you?
Well, I welcome the little bullet point of any ethnicity. It certainly opens the door. I've been more positively affected by it as probably over the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's been that has expanded. But sometimes I'm not Black enough. I mean, these are things that I've either heard or gleaned from, I'm not, I've played, Mexican American, different Latino or Latinx. I'm not hip on some of the lingo. Some maybe Middle Eastern, certainly African American, but I haven't played maybe just a strict Italian American. More of like some Italians from New York or from Chicago or stuff like that, where it kind of depends on what I wear and how I'm dressed. But I've benefited from the open ethnicity, any ethnicity, because I've been able to, I don't know, move in between some of those things, which is cool. I mean, I love it. I mean, I like people. I mean, I like, it's the human race it's a potpourri of different people. And so as an actor, you get to learn about other people. And you're pleasantly surprised. And depending on the character you're playing, you're like, oh, you're mortified because regardless of the ethnicity, this person does bad things. And that's the guy you got to portray to help the story. And you're still going to learn about people in that respect.
Well, let's get Barbara and Michael on. Barbara, are you out there somewhere?
I'm here, Thom.
Hey,
Good morning,
Barbara,
David. How are you?
Hi, Barbara.
I do,
Pleasure.
and David, your story is absolutely fascinating. I've listened to it several times. I listened to the broadcast of the NPR segment there, and every time I listen to it, I hear something different. So I don't really know where to start. But one of the questions I have for you is, you met your biological father when you were, I think, late 20s, early 30s.
When I was, early 30s.
Okay. And how was that first interaction? Tell us about that.
Well, that is its own little thing. I mean, leading up to it, I was doing a film in Florida. This is the real quick. And they gave me like 4 days off. And I had, a couple people knew me beyond just the acting there, one of the directors. So he knew my story up to that point. And then basically I was like, oh, you guys are giving me 4 days off. I said, I might go and try and find my biological father. Now I had a address, but I had no phone number. I had a name and a social security number, oddly enough, but it wasn't back in the day. I couldn't verify everything. And maybe if I paid someone a bunch of money, I could have, verified it was him. But based on the prior address, which is in Chicago, where I had grown up originally, I knew that I had a feeling that it was him, but I didn't know, who he was or where he was. So anyway, I got a map. Someone helped me navigate. I drove all the way there. It was raining the whole time. I was, going through Georgia and, anyway, working my way to Memphis, Tennessee from northern Florida, from, like Daytona Beach area, Ormond Beach. And I couldn't find it on the map. I found a hotel. I couldn't find it on the map. I got up in the morning. I just go, well, let me go this way. I think this is, and I started driving. It was like this spiritual experience. And all of a sudden, I swear within like 7 minutes of leaving the place, I saw the street name and I just pulled over and started to go around, and I'm looking at the addresses and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And then I stopped in front of his house. It's just a modest area in Memphis, Tennessee. And I was like, okay, I pulled across the street. And I was like, well, Dave, you've come all this way. You gotta
Right.
I didn't really have a plan. I was like, maybe I could be from his high school because he was a basketball star back in high school. I was like, maybe I could go and say anyway, I'm like, forget it. Let me just go. So I went to the front door and I knocked. And there was a side door kind of around the corner. And that side door I heard open. And I was like, and I heard this voice like, can I help you? So then I was walking, like it was like the walking. And then I come around the corner and I see this guy with these big eyes, basically like mine. He's like looking at me like this. And I'm like, I think to myself, I'm like, if that's not my dad, I don't know who is.
Right.
It's like looking into a mirror as far as the eyes go, right?
Wow.
So I said, I'm looking for Keith Rash. And he's like, you got him. Who the hell are you? And I was like, oh man, this is. And I said, well, maybe remember my mom, Carol Provenzano. Excuse me. I take that back. I said, my name's Dave Paladino. And he says, didn't I go to high school with you? Because he remembered Dave Sr., my friend. I'm like, I don't look that old. Come on. I was like, I go, no, maybe you remember my mom, Carol Provenzano. And when he heard that name, he said, I don't know if I can really do the action, but he was holding the door like this. And he's like, come on in. And like,
wow.
As soon as he heard my mom's name. So long story to get to that point of your question, Barbara, but he opened the door. We went in. This is like 9:30 in the morning. Turns out he worked for FedEx at the time, and he usually worked night shift, but he was off. So he was actually home.
Wow.
I got a good night's sleep. He was home. He's like, do you want a water? He's like, we basically sat down on the couch, like it's like a movie, like you got a guy there and I got a guy there, and you're like kind of looking at each other, like, and he said, so you're my son, huh? And I said,
wow.
Yep. And he said, how did you find out? When did you find out? Like, and then I just started to tell my kind of story and told him, and basically it was like, I never knew. My mom didn't know. She suspected, but she was basically with both my dad and my biological father.
Right.
It was, we're talking about the late 60s, 69 into the early 70s. Blacks and Italians, you're like, hey, you don't really mix. But my mom was doing her thing. And basically, when I was born, she was like, you didn't look black. As you got older, like in the summer, like I got dark, but then I would get light. Like I had that kind of olive, but then as I became a teenager and got into being a man and my face was taking more shape, she was like, oh, because I looked more like Keith.
Yes.
And then, so anyway, I met Keith and we started our, father-son relationship then.
Wow.
It was a trip.
That's truly amazing. Truly amazing. So how or has it changed your relationship with David Sr., who you thought was your father all those years?
It has not. I mean, if anything, it's strengthened it. I mean, the irony of this is that this is just my take. It's like fatherhood, parenthood goes beyond blood. It's my dad said to my mom, like my mom told him when I was 18, I was off at college, and she said, she had totally come to grips with it, figured it out, and was like, I can't keep this any longer. And said, Davy, they call me Davy. Davy's not your son. And my dad had said to her, you know what, Carol, I think deep down I always knew that, but it just didn't matter. It's like I saw him born. I mean, he's my son. He's Davy. I mean, he's my son. And like that just wrecks me, because he's my dad. Like I don't have any other thing. I mean, that's the dad who raised me through the good and the bad, through, I mean, we always got along. He was just a regular father-son relationship,
Right.
Wow.
He and my mom helped me, get through college. And, it's like, so by the time I found out was, over 10 years after that, like, he never treated me any different in that time. Okay. And obviously I didn't know.
Right.
So it just, I mean, obviously I have two sons now. It's like my sons are my sons, and I know they're my sons, but, without question. But if for some reason it turned out not to be, like, they're my sons. I mean, I don't know. That's why people that I know that have adopted or something like that, I go, there's no difference.
Yes.
Once you, as a, however you want to me, it's like this, as a being, as a person, as this entity, like you come together and you put your love and your heart and soul into this through good and bad. You're like, it's family. That's family. That's part
Absolutely.
of you.
Absolutely.
Let me Let me get Michael on, and we'll come back. Michael, you got something for David?
Yes. Good morning, David. Glad
Good
you could be
morning.
with us today.
Thanks so much, Michael. Appreciate it.
You know, one of my questions, you already hit on it, which was, what are the different ethnic roles you've been asked to play? So I'm gonna have to change that. You have to do that when you do this. You know, you got to switch it up.
That's right.
I'm going to change it and say, out of all the different ethnic roles you have played,
Mm-hmm.
which one did you enjoy playing the most? And you cannot say African American or Black.
Why?
Oh man,
That's my job. That's what I do. I ask these kind of questions.
that's right. That's you get that. This is the response.
I get that a lot.
You get that a lot. Yeah. Man, Michael. Okay. I don't know. That's so strange. I'm not. Your question is strange. I mean, it's one of those things where people are people, and so like I've played. Let's say I played an Italian American and a Hispanic American. There are similarities to them. I don't know. I play some bad guys too, and those are fun to play sometimes. So, especially when you're, well, I don't know. Maybe I am bad. I don't know. But when you're not bad, you're like, I would play. I would say I played a. It was a Latin character. He was he was Panamanian. It was a Panamanian boxer, and he was a boxer, and he was just a bad dude in the fact that he could take apart your face with punches very quickly. But he had that kind of, he was off. And it had nothing to do with him being Panamanian. So people don't get mad at me. He was, you know, much like I think Roberto Duran, you know, just a warrior, but also like he'll mess you up.
Thank you for that.
Good question, Michael. You got your man, and
That's what he was going for, David.
That's right. You're good at it. You're good.
That's interesting. You know, I never get to play bad guys either. And I even had this guy tell me one time, I went to read for him, and I really wanted to be this guy because he was nasty. And he says, you know, you're nice. You can't play. You won't be able to play this. I said, man, I can be ugly, you know. But anyway, so who's next? Michael, Barbara?
Okay, I'm going to throw you a softball question.
Okay.
Tell me when you first got the acting bug, because looking at your background, you know, you've been in accounting and a business person, and you've done all these different things. When did you really get the bug and say, this is really what I want to be, but I'm not going to tell anybody because I got to work towards it and what have you? When did that happen?
That's a great question, because you actually hit kind of all those points. It was when I was very, very young, and then I didn't want to tell anybody because I was an athlete and it wasn't cool. And even though my sisters did it. So what's interesting is that I hadn't spotted exactly where it had started until just weeks ago. It was actually seeing the movie Rocky. And as then an Italian American, yeah, as a kid, you know, it was like Rocky Balboa, you know, he's Italian. I'm like, I'm Italian, you know, grew up in Italian. And it was like, you know, but I identified, because I had experienced prejudice well before that. And I never told anybody because I never, I think, thought my parents would identify or anyone around me because they didn't look like me. So I remember seeing Rocky. Now, Rocky didn't look like me, but he was like this underdog. He was like this, you know, it's not like I thought I was a lovable loser, but it was like this, there's something I identify with Rocky of being like, you know, he's just trying to do this and trying to do this. And for some reason, he was like a lone wolf, and I felt like I was kind of this lone wolf. This is kind of in hindsight. But recently I was running and listening to some of the soundtrack, and I was like, oh my God, that's where it first started. Now, through these years, I was like, I want to do that. I want to be in film. I really wanted to be in film and like inspire people like Rocky did for me. And then I saw, years later, I saw the movie Glory with Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman and Matthew Broderick and stuff. And I was like, and I had still wanted to do that. And I had started I took maybe one class in like a junior college by then. But I was just blown away by that movie and those performances. And then it just brought it to like kind of that next phase. And then I had some problems in life, and my grandma had passed away, and I was like, why didn't I do what I want to do? So I went to kind of the next phase. I started to take some classes in college, and then I came up and was doing accounting in Los Angeles. And a buddy, we were doing a boxing class, and he was like, hey, I'm doing this, acting class. And me and my other buddy were like, yeah, let's do it. And this was like what I would, I was like, how do I do it? How do I get started? So I started taking this acting class in Hollywood.
Wow.
And then eventually I built it from there. And, I left my accounting job that I'd been at for 5+ years. I worked in an accounting department. I wasn't a CPA, but I worked in an accounting department. And I basically like took the little bit of retirement I had in the, 401k, and I was like, took it out. I'm moving to Hollywood. I mean, I was in the LA area, but I was like, I'm going to move down there. And people thought I was out of my mind. It's like the chances of, working, let alone having some sort of career where you could, maintain your family or do anything. And, I'm still working towards that every day, but I've worked, through the years, and am very happy, and have made some, fond memories,
Well, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Very much so. Well, any David, you got anything else you want to share with us before we?
Oh man. Yeah, like when you're answering a question, you're like, "Am I going way too long on this answer here?" It's like,
no, this has been great.
I mean, I think, it aired recently, the NPR show, and it aired some years ago, and it does, it comes back every few years, and they usually call me for an update. So when the last time they called me, it was kind of bittersweet because Keith has since passed away, my biological father, and then his mom passed away just right around Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
And I think she was 89. Yeah, almost 90, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my brother Shelly, Keith's, son. And so, we were talking, and he was letting me, know, but, just crazy life is just crazy, because I knew Keith was sick. And so it was 2 years ago. It was right before the pandemic started, and he wasn't doing well. And I was going to Mexico to go shoot a show. And the reason I bring this story up is because you never know when things, like my acting teachers used to always tell me, you're about to be going on stage, you're going to find out your car got hit, or someone broke into your house, or something bad happened in your life. And, you're like, as an actor, you're like, yeah, these are just acting stories and stuff. Well, I knew Keith was sick, so I was in Mexico, and I was shooting a show. And the very first day, I'm in the van. We literally pull up to the location. I step 1 foot out, and my phone goes bzzz. It's like a huge setup. My first day of shooting on this TV show, and I look at my phone, and it's my brother Shelly, and he says, Keith just passed away. And I was like, oh my gosh. You're already like in a foreign country, and you're going to shoot a show, and there's enough pressure on you. And I was like, and I knew it was coming. It just was one of those things. And then I was like, I don't know. I always try and get to these moments where like, I can do it. It's like I found Keith. I can honor him and do great today. And some of these things may seem significant, but I just try and not be significant and make it like, like, hey, this is going to help me get through this, shoot day versus something that's going to take away from it. And so the last time they called me for the update, that kind of brought all that memory up. And then, my grandma Beth, Keith's mom, had passed away, like I said, and so that update to the story is like, it sucks to have that part of the family, not be there. I didn't always see Keith. We talked on the phone. I probably talked to Beth more than I even did Keith. And we spent an hour on the phone. I mean, she just would love to talk and tell me about her life, and she was a special, strong woman. And had an amazing life and long life, and they will be missed, but I will, remember the short time I'd had with them, and then, try and stay connected to my brother Shelly. He's got a family, and he's busy, and I'm busy, and send a text message and happy birthday and things of that nature, and hopefully we can, stay connected. So just wanted to add that little bit at the end, but I don't want to be a downer, but that I was just happy that I had the time, and take whatever time you have. I know, Barbara, you were talking about losing some people in Thom, and but we probably all have.
Yes.
But that, those are things we can take for granted, and not that you have, but it's just, generally speaking, it's like, ooh, I wish I would have just said one more thing or had one more moment. And it's not a good place to live in regret. It's like, let's live in the now and create the future kind of thing.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, David, man, thank you so much. Joyce says hello.
Hello, Joyce. She's a neat lady.
Yeah, we've been, I guess we met, I say the early 2000s, somewhere in there. You started working with us and doing wonderful work for us, and we certainly appreciate it. So anyway, we're going to move on to the conclusion of the show. We thank you so much, man. It was just
thank you
wonderful.
All. I appreciate you.
Enjoy.
Let's give David a hand. Thank you, David. Thank you, Michael and Barbara. My closing commentary, or as I see it, is about the movie business, or particularly certain movies. With award season is right around the corner. I get to watch a lot of movies during the award season as a member of the Screen Actors Guild, Television Academy, and so on and so forth. I get to vote on the movies. So I can tell you some of my favorites for this year. If you haven't seen Respect with Jennifer Hudson as Aretha Franklin, it's awesome. She's awesome. You should see that one. The Lost Daughter with Olivia Colman is equally as awesome. I think other favorites that I've been fortunate enough to watch this year is The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston, Being the Ricardos with Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem, King Richard with Will Smith, The Tender Bar with Ben Affleck, and Denzel in The Tragedy of Macbeth. Before I leave you, I thought Black History Month on TCM was equally as compelling. Throughout the month, TCM, Turner Classic Movies, showed several Sidney Poitier movies back to back. And this past Sunday, it was Sidney Poitier for about 5 movies in a row. And for me, it was a great reminder of what a great actor he was. Lilies of the Field, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, In the Heat of the Night, The Defiant Ones, To Serve with Love. Thank you, Sidney, and thank you, TCM, for the reminder. Don't forget the work continues on CIOTA and the Scottsboro Boys Museum and Legal Institute. I'll have more information for you next week and let you know how you can participate, how you can contribute and help us as we build this Legal Institute and Museum in Decatur, Alabama. And so that's how I see it on February 22nd in the year 2022. And that's our show for today. I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank you, Michael and Barbara. Thank our G-List guests. Wonderful. David Paladino. Next week, just speaking of the Scottsboro boys, next week we'll have definitive news on the website completion, and how you can participate. I'll bring you that next week with Eric Simmons, who's working on that for us. And so that's our show for today. I want to thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer. I want to thank Sean Jones, the organizer. Thank Joyce Gilly Gossam. Remember to enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.